Hello, this is Kyle from my Midnight Paranormal Files. Today we are going to be celebrating the 4th of July here at Midnight Paranormal Files. So today we are going to be talking about Gettysburg. Yeah, it's a little ironic that I'm talking about Gettysburg and the American Civil War on the week that pretty close to the 4th of July. But anyway, the reason why we're talking about this, and I know that this is not in Wisconsin, is because I went here to Gettysburg on the 150-year anniversary of the battle, which was almost 10 years ago already. Um, Now, I'm going to probably talk about the history of the battlefield and then my personal ghost experiences there, and I hope you all enjoy it. I know it's different from what I normally do and focus on stuff in Wisconsin, but I figured it'd be a little bit of a change. On the morning of July 1st, an engagement between the Union cavalry commanded by John Bufford and Confederate infantry and artillery commander by Lieutenant General A.P. Hill set into motion one of the most famous battles in military history. By 10 a.m., Hill's men had Bufford's troopers on their heels. Timely Union infantry reinforcements poured onto the field, overseen by left wing Corporal John Reynolds. Shortly after entering the battlefield, Reynolds was killed, and after an hour and a half of stout resistance, the Federals held their own as a Lou came across the field. Tens of thousands of Confederates approached the field from the west and the north, and tens of thousands of Federals approached from the south. Later in the afternoon, outnumbered in a poor tactical position, the Federals were driven from the north and west sides of the town. The Yankees railed on Cemetery Hill and bolstered their lines, incorporating the dominating Culp's Hill on the right flank into their defense positions. Meanwhile, on their left, the Federals extended their lines south along Cemetery Ridge to the base of Little Round Top. Now, I've been to Little Round Top when I took the vacation there to Gettysburg, and it is really weird. The whole area is, you just feel something. I don't know what it is. But anyway, back to the story. Late on the afternoon of July 2nd, the rebel army renewed its assault, striking the Federals at Devil's Den, Little Round Top, the Peach Orchard, and the Wheat Field. The next 3 hours witnessed some of the most intense fighting of the war. The rebels were able to secure Devil's Den, the Peach Orchard, and the Wheat Field, and they dislodged much of the Federal lines. Yet the Federals still held Little Round Top and Cemetery Ridge. An ill-coordinated Confederate assault struck the right of the Union line at Culp's Hill and East Cemetery Hill. At the end of the day, the Federal Army was determined to stay and fight it out. I don't know what I was trying to say there. The battle renewed at 4:30 a.m. on July 3rd at Culp's Hill for 7 hours, the longest okay, whatever. Basically they fought for 7 hours and it was really long of the battle, and the two sides grappled in the end, Federal position proved too strong to dislodge. After striking each Union flank, Lee set his sights on the Federal center, amassing some 120 cannons. Lee bombarded the Union position. Union cannons roared to life, responding in kind. At the conclusion of the bombardment, 12,000 Confederate soldiers launched the most infamous assault on Lee's career. In less than an hour, the Confederates were repulsed, and the next day Lee started the long march back to Virginia. The last great Confederate offense in the Eastern Fear was over. And that is basically the history of Gettysburg. Everybody probably heard about this like a million times already, especially if you live in the U.S. But since this is going out to all over the place, now you know a little bit more about the Battle of Gettysburg. It's kind of like our version of the Battle of Waterloo for Napoleonic Wars, kinda, a little bit. So let's talk about the ghost stuff now. I went on a ghost tour there in Gettysburg with my parents, which I was only like 15 or 16 at the time. But anyway, you could, we gave one of the Confederate soldiers that died at this bridge that was like, that has a roof on top. I don't know what those are called. It's like really old. We gave him a cigarette lit up, and it literally looked like somebody was actually smoking a cigarette or cigar or whatever. That was very weird. We had a bunch of like ghost hunting equipment. This was before I invested in my own stuff there, and there was not too much that happened. I don't think. I think the EMF reader they had went off a few times, and a couple other things happened, but I kind of forgot a little bit because it's been a long time ago. But yeah, that's some of the weird stuff that happened. You could if you ever go to Gettysburg, it has a weird energy about it. Like, you feel like there's something there. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like very different than anywhere else I've been to. Like, you could just feel like the energy of the spirits that were there in the past and stuff being there and stuff. And yeah, I went to Little Round Top and Big Round Top, but we didn't get out of the car because okay, so if you ever go there for yourselves, they got like statues for all the states that were in the battle, and we were trying to find our own, which we didn't really find a big statue or anything because most of the guys that were in the Union Army in Wisconsin were fighting in the Western Theater, so we didn't really have as many troops in the Eastern Theater, but they were there. I think there were only like 2,000 or 3,000 people from Wisconsin that were in Gettysburg there. But yeah, that was one of the weird things about that. So we only got like a little tiny headstone where you got like Virginia having like all these big, huge headstones for their infantry regiments and stuff at Gettysburg. So there's that for everybody. I do have a relative that fought in the Civil War, but I don't know what side he fought on or anything because we don't have any records of anything about his life prior to him changing his name and all that. Because he fled the war because he was like, fuck this. Because he, you know how bad it was back then with, it's still kind of bad now, but it was probably worse back then with, you know, getting your, with gangrene and how they did like surgeries and stuff where they just literally take a saw and saw your leg off or whatever. That would suck so much, and I kind of don't blame him for just being like, you know what, screw this. This is not worth getting my arm chopped off or whatever, and he fled to here. Now I don't know anything about him, and okay. Let's get back to the paranormal stuff. I'm going off on a totally different thing about one of my lost relatives that we don't even know about. So at one night on like it was close to the 4th of July. And it was the 150-year anniversary, like what I said before. We literally heard, it was like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, and we literally heard cannon fire coming from outside. There was no rain, there was no thunder or lightning outside, there were no reenactors out. So basically what happened was we heard this cannon fire, but it didn't sound like, it sounded close, but it didn't sound like it was actually there. Like it sounded fainted, if you know what I'm saying. Like somebody put it on like like on a TV screen or whatever, but it was like at a lower volume or something like that. It was weird. We heard cannon fire around 10 or 11 o'clock at night, like what I said before. At the place that we stayed at, it was a bed and breakfast that was there during the battle. And we were talking about our ghosts here at home to them, to the staff. And all of a sudden the lights flickered. And they said to not talk about our ghosts or anything after that, because we must have freaked them out or something, because the lights started flickering and whatever, and that was really weird by itself also. Another place that is haunted there is one of the houses where one of the only civilians that got killed there. So they got killed there, and it was a woman, I believe. I don't remember her name or anything. I think they nicknamed her Rose because whenever you go up the stairs or whatever, there's like you smell roses, like perfumes, like a perfume that smells like roses or something like that. So you get a whiff of this, and it's like a trail wherever you go. And that was pretty strange also. Now, it's kind of cool about Gettysburg, going there and witnessing all this stuff, where anywhere else you wouldn't see it as much. Now, in Wisconsin, we don't really have any like Civil War battlefields or anything like that, because for number one, we're really close to Canada, and most of the people were, or basically everybody was on the Union side in the state here. But if you go a little more west, like west from the Mississippi, like in Minnesota, or not Minnesota, but like the Dakotas was not states yet, so that was a part of the Dakota Territory, I believe. Don't quote me on that or anything. But yeah, that's the story of my paranormal experience at Gettysburg and the history of the battlefield. If you don't know much about the battlefield, which most people probably know about the battlefield because I think everybody learned it in school. Um, I hope everybody likes this video. I find it very, or not this video, but this podcast episode. There is one more thing I do want to share with everybody, which not as many people know about this, unless if you're a Civil War history buff. But Wisconsin is home to the Iron Brigade, which they were like a special forces unit in Wisconsin, or the Wisconsin Black Hats they called them because they wore these black cowboy like cavalry hats or whatever, and they were like a special force unit, and they hid inside of cornfields and stuff and ambushed the enemy and stuff, which I find really interesting to learn about that. So that's what one of the really well known things uh, is known about the state during that time is that we had special forces basically, and a couple other things like cranberries. We were really known for cranberries. But anyway, I will let everybody go. I hope, like I said before, I hope everybody likes this podcast episode. I know it's a little weird talking about the American Civil War on the 4th of July weekend, but I find it interesting. I hope everybody else does. And I'll talk to everybody next episode.